Patients who have been very diligent and are watching their diet and are exercising consistently. In fact, there was an older man here. I asked if he wanted to come to the class tonight. He said, no, I haven't had high blood pressure forever. This guy walks, and I can count every time I see him. I see him once a week now. He goes and walks 3 days a week, and it doesn't matter if it rains, snows. This guy's an ex-Marine, but he has kept himself fit. He eats well. He exercises. He knows what his blood pressure is. He's getting adjusted. It's really an amazing thing that if you really get serious about this, we can actually make some real changes. And if you really, tonight I'm probably not going to get into the specifics of some vitamin protocols and things like that, but if this is something that you really want to explore, let me know, and I can make some copies. I've got some stuff I can make copies for you, like the sorts of vitamins that you should be taking to lower your blood pressure and things like that. Now, my bias is I don't want you to go there if chiropractic isn't part of your foundation yet, right? Let's make sure that you're getting your nerve system checked and cared for, right? Let's also make sure that you're not taking the vitamins to make up for poor choices in food, right? Let's make sure that if you need to drop some weight, that we figure out a way to do that, right? Let's make sure that we kind of, and then, are you smoking? You know what I mean? If you are smoking and your blood pressure is high, we've got to talk, right? And you can say, Doc, I've tried, it just hasn't worked. Well, that might be the elephant in the room, right? Let's not then talk about coenzyme Q10 and smoke a cigarette, right? You understand? I mean, these sorts of things. Let's make sure that we're really being truthful and really sincere. So, let's talk about blood pressure itself. What is the first drug that people are typically given if your blood pressure is high?
Water pill.
Yes. Why are you given a water pill? Yes. Okay.
Water retention?
Yes. So what organ in your body determines how much water you retain?
Kidneys.
Who said that? Yes. All right. So, do you realize kidneys?
What was the answer?
Kidneys.
Not the heart.
Not the no. It's the kidneys. So, number one on the hit parade, if we're going to have a chiropractic conversation about blood pressure, we have got to talk about your kidneys. So, where are your kidneys? Right here. Okay. So now you're in a chiropractic office. Where do you think?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Well, how come then when people's hearts start to fail them, their body starts swelling up with water?
A lot of times their kidneys are failing, and that's what like my dad ended up dying ultimately just a few weeks ago, and it was kidney failure. They couldn't clean it, even using dialysis. They couldn't clean it because everything was shutting down. Is what was happening. So if we really talk about that, the kidney really is often where everything really goes south. Yeah. So we need to have our kidneys working well. So where do you think the nerves come from that go to your kidney? They come from the spine. Yes. So you see, if your kidneys aren't quite doing a good job, do you understand that it seems reasonable to me that a question would be asked, how are the nerves to your kidneys working? But you said the spine. Where do you think they come out of the spine? Would you think up here? No, why not? That's smart. Do you hear what he said? They're not around the kidneys. One basic principle, and if all you learn today is the nerves to the structures in your body, the nerves to those structures branch out pretty close to where they are, right? So thyroid, if you have low thyroid, think neck, right? If you are having heartburn because it's in your stomach, think in between your shoulder blades, right? Where is it? Diabetes, the pancreas here, this sort of stuff. If I'm having constipation, you understand these things? There are a few exceptions, like your diaphragm is down here. Remember I mentioned C4. That's one of the few exceptions, right? So if you learn the exceptions, everything else is the rule. So if the kidneys are here, where would you expect them, Solomon? Right there. There. Yep. So people have, and there are several structures in that kidney area. A gland that sits on top of your kidneys is your adrenals, right? And I cannot tell you how many people who have high blood pressure are stressed out. I don't think it's just coincidental. It's possible that the adrenals could be so fatigued out that they're sending signals, and those nerves coming to and from the kidney, they're real close to each other, man. You know, when we start talking about pathways that are close to each other, there's some really interesting things that can happen neurologically, and there may be more of that sort of stuff involved than we even know about. But long term, when we start talking about your blood pressure, not from a moment to moment, but from a day to day, like if I test your blood pressure today and it's this level, and I check it a week later and it's this level, it is your kidneys that are the primary thing that is controlling that. So that is very, very important. Now, have you guys ever been scared? You almost get in a car wreck or something, your heart pounds and you're back to, remember how I talked about what you see, the limbic system, and then tells the signal, and then your heart races, your breathing changes, you sweat, all this stuff. These are autonomic responses triggered by what the feedback, kind of the brain type of things coming down, feeding into this system. If you talk about short term, those things, it's not, the kidney is not so involved in that. All right, that one has to do with, I'm going to say more the carotid sinus. Do you know where that is? Well, okay. So in your body, you've heard of have you heard of, you know when you check somebody's pulse here at the carotid, have you heard that? Okay. The sensing of kind of the fluctuations of your blood pressure. And this allows us, when I go to stand up, I don't want to get lightheaded and fall over. Does that make sense? You understand there's a very complex mechanism. Your body has to sense that as you stand up, that all your blood vessels have to squeeze so this column of blood doesn't sag, that it actually rises up and stays in your brain. Okay? So how your body senses that is in this carotid sinus area. And it will send signals quickly up to the system. So remember back to our principle about where the thing is? So if you've got these little, what are called baroreceptors in your neck, in the carotid, right where it's what is called the bifurcation of the carotid, you've got an internal and external carotid artery. So right in this area, there's a cluster of baroreceptors that are always monitoring your blood pressure so that when you stand up, you don't fall over. This is more the short-term regulation comes from this area. So these signals then go into the neck and up to the brain for processing. So do you see how when we started talking, remember we talked about the atlas, we started talking about some of these things, you start going, wait a minute here. The status of the neck could have something to do with somebody's blood pressure. Now the way it could, so where you go, well now this is interesting. You could have the signals going into the neck, if they get choked off there, do you realize that the signal might never get up to the brain that says we need to change our blood pressure? You could have low blood pressure, you could have high, you could have fluctuating, it wouldn't register because the signal's not getting up to the brain. So, alright, that's interesting. The same thing could be true of the kidneys. There could be some real dysfunction, and it could be the signals going into your brain. Do you realize that in your nerve system, it's only a third of the signals are going out? 2/3 of the signals are data going into your brain for processing. Isn't that, you know, if you cut up a nerve, 2/3 in, 1/3 out. So you start thinking, wait a minute here, so these baroreceptors are sending signals in through my neck. So if I have a misalignment in my neck, it might not just be the arthritis that's the problem, it might be that that's choking off my signals going up to the brain, which might have caused my blood pressure to go through the roof because the signals are getting messed up, right? So the signals from the midbrain, they go to, where did they go? Let's say it got the signal, and let's say then it decided that your blood pressure needs to be raised. What is it going to do to raise your blood pressure?